Number one, increasing rates for the retrans surcharge, increasing the rate for the cable network pass-through fee. 3, increasing the rate for bulk cable 1 and bulk cable 2. Number 4, establishing retention tier lineup and a pass-through fee. And 5, updating sections 5, 10, and 12 of the tariff. This public hearing was advertised in accordance with the regulations for public notification and appeared in the weekend, April 6th, 7th, 2024 edition of the State Journal newspaper. To conduct this hearing in orderly fashion, we've asked that anyone wishing to comment register via email with Kathy Poe or Kathy Lindsay. This hearing will be conducted informally and voluntarily by the FPB in order to accept comments on the above items. Both oral and written comments will be accepted. Any and all persons present here today who wish to make a statement will be afforded the opportunity to do so. If you have a written statement that accompanies your oral presentation, a copy of that written statement should be provided to the board prior to your presentation. Oral presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes, and if necessary, I will interrupt and request that a presentation be completed due to this time limit. I or many other board members may ask questions of a person presenting comments where it is necessary to clarify the nature or substance of the comments. The board reserves the rights to answer questions posed at a later date, and it's the job of the board to fairly consider all various points of view and information. We want public input and involvement, and we hope we do not find our standard procedures to be restrictive. Additional oral comments and written comments after this meeting will be accepted and considered if they are submitted no later than the end of normal business hours on Friday, April 26th, 2024. To submit a comment, please contact FPB at 352-4372 or on our website at www.fpb.cc. Before we open the floor for comments, Harvey Couch of the FPB staff will provide a summary of the details.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. I'll review the 5 different items in this public hearing. Most of them are on the screen up here, but the first one is the increasing the rate of the retrans surcharge. That's our every 3 years renegotiation with the broadcast channels in Lexington and Louisville. This is a direct pass-through of those charges, and it's currently at $27.25, and proposing to increase it to $29.89 per month, and that will be effective June 1st. And then $32.63 on January 1st of 25, and $35.69 on January 1st of 26. And again, these are the rates that we're being charged for these broadcast channels, and it would be a direct pass-through of those charges. The second item is basically the same charge for the cable networks. On the classic cable side, currently we charge $63.81 for the cable network pass-through fee, and we would be asking for a 4% increase to $67.85, again effective June 1st, and again a direct pass-through of the monthly fees paid by FPB for those networks. The third item is bulk cable 1 and 2. These are for well, bulk cable 1 is hotels and dormitories. Bulk cable 2 is office complexes with more than 8 outlets. Those increases are proportional to the increases on the first 2 items of this public hearing. And then the fourth item is establishing a new tier on cable TV that we're calling a retention tier that would be in between our limited, which is broadcast basic, and our classic, which is sort of a traditional full cable lineup, and that would be basically taking all of the sports networks out, which is really the main driver of the increases in cost, and so we're proposing to establish that tier and then establish the rate. The pass-through on that is $14.20, and it would come with the same $29.89 retrans charge and the $12.79 customer charge. And then the fifth item is updating the 3 sections of the tariff to add the clause that from time to time FPB may retire technology, and upon 60-day notice, written notice to the customer, inform them of alternate service options. To the cable rates, you know, we've looked at these charts before. This is the retrans surcharge over the past 14 years that we've seen increase significantly, and again, that's the direct pass-through of those broadcast channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And then this chart shows the classic cable rates, the breakdown, the $12.79 customer charge, which has actually gone down over the last 20 years, which is the amount that stays here in Frankfurt, and then the orange line, which is the pass-through fee, and the blue line being the total customer expense. And then here's the retention tier. We're talking about a tier that's going to have broadcast basic and about 20 plus additional channels with some news, movie channels, family entertainment, and we hope that this will meet a need for customers that that aren't interested in the sports but want to have a little bit more than just the limited cable offers. And again, you can see the increases across the board for not only the over-the-top streamers but also the other multi-channel video operators like FPB. The costs of content are increasing every year, and unfortunately that gets passed on to our customers. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have on this item. Otherwise, you guys can proceed with your public hearing.
Thank you, Harvey.
Harvey, I think you saw the comment that we had from one customer
Yes, sir.
that specifically said, well, here's her question. I won't call her name because, privacy, but she basically said, just one question, why? The FPB already has higher fees than my dish network for fewer channels. These increases are quite significant once all are set in place. Second question, what is a surcharge transmission fee anyway?
Sure.
Could you address both those?
Yeah. So I had a nice back and forth with this customer. She was actually kind of reaching out on behalf of, I think, her nephew or her son. She's not a Plainport Cable customer, but he is. And so I explained the retrans surcharge as being the broadcast channels, and and that these increases are literally just pass-through fees that are being increased on FPB and pretty much every other operator in the country. That these costs go up every year, and we pass these on to, unfortunately have to pass these on to our customers. And she was understood and very appreciative of our feedback.
And I think it's important on the Louisville and Lexington channels.
Yeah.
We've had a policy ever since I've been on this board, and I think this board for years has had the policy. And at one point, I guess years ago, we even had Cincinnati channels that we've tried to offer these channels, and our customers, I think, have indicated to us they like to have all 4 Lexington channels. They'd like to have the Louisville channels. That they liked having that option. I know a lot of the various streaming services might have 1 or 2.
Well, no, they won't have any. In fact, I pointed this out to her.
Yeah.
There's satellite providers and the streaming providers do not offer any Louisville stations here in Franklin County. So we're the only provider that does, and I think that's a competitive advantage. I think we should continue to.
And if we don't do that, under federal law, we can't, even though their signal is, if you put an antenna up,
Right.
you can grab it out of there, but if we want to retransmit it,
Yeah.
we don't have an option
have to
but to pay.
In order for them to grant us the right to distribute that, they can impose a fee on our customers.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So it's nothing we've chosen to do, or it's not a way we're trying to raise money. It's whatever we collect, we're sending to those, and not to ABC and that in New York. We're sending it to the local channels.
Yeah, they'll tell you that most of that then goes to New York, but they keep a little bit of it, and then most of it then goes on.
And also, it's not like, it's not like mom and pop on WKYT.
Right.
There are what, 7 or 8 of them, of Hearst and Sinclair that own the vast majority of these local stations.
There's still a few smaller ones. I think WTVQ is still in a smaller ownership group, but pretty much every other broadcaster is a major.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Kathy, do we have anyone signed up?
We do have one person, I think, that came in, Mr. Greg Riggs.
Okay. Mr. Riggs? Would you like to come up to the podium, please?
My classmate.
Well, we need you on the mic, so everybody else can hear you.
We can't.
Pretty loud.
We're not going. We can't spin a wheel and get you a prize or anything, but
Make me feel special. If I understand, the pass-through fees you're talking about we're paying exactly what you all are paying.
Yes.
Is
Yes,
that correct?
We have a charge
right.
with every single provider, TNT, Turner, ESPN, all those. They tell us exactly how much they're going to charge us for each channel, and we charge you that amount.
All right, then in the statement there a minute ago, I understood the retransmission fee.
Same
is-
thing.
is
Same
a-
thing.
the
Same thing for the broadcast channels. Which 20 years ago, like we were saying, 20 years ago we didn't have to pay anything for those. But there was a change in federal law, and now we have to pay if we want to retransmit those on our cable
Now,
system.
those are the channels you're talking about, 3, 5, and 18,
Yes,
9, 11, 20,
yes.
you know, basic TV.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically 3 through 12
Yeah,
on your
Right,
cable. Yeah,
right,
yeah. Yes, sir.
okay. What are the new tier you're talking about
Uh-huh.
instituting? This is streaming, which means it has to be watched on.
No,
Harvey?
it'll be cable. So it'll be though. Right now we offer a tier that goes up to channel 30 essentially, which is everything up to where you get to ESPN.
Right.
So that's John's favorite channel, MeTV, and all that stuff, and KET and all those. What we're going to add to that is we're going to select several channels that don't offer any sports at all, and we're going to offer them for another bundle. And I think Harvey, what the price is going to be like $14 extra or something.
I understood that.
Yeah.
What I'm at, but what is next band?
Next.
So that package will only be available on the streaming video service.
And are we losing cable channels? What I refer
No.
to everything from channel 3 to channel,
No.
however high it goes.
No.
You're not taking anything away from here to put it in this package.
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Well, where are the streaming things coming from? What are they?
We pay in the contract. We also negotiate the ability to put this out on a streaming service. So that's you have the option of doing that if you want to, and using the next band.
I like a TV. I don't want to watch my
I understand.
phone
I
or my
understand.
computer or
I understand.
a laptop.
I understand.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And that is something a lot of people that I've talked to don't.
Right.
Nobody understands this.
Right.
And the way that it was written in the paper, it didn't explain it very well. And that's why I came tonight, was to
No.
find out exactly. So,
No.
so if I understand this, you're looking at an increase in what I have now. I have all the what I call the pay channels, HBO.
Our cost to provide all those things to you have gone up, and we are taking those fees both for the broadcast and for the TNT and ESPN, all those. We're packaging all that, and that's what this rate increase is. The amount of money, as you see on the line there at the bottom, the amount of money we get to run the cable system has stayed the same for 20 years. essentially.
Stay
The green
flat.
line at the bottom is what we keep.
Is what
the
we
orange and
keep.
the blue line we pay someone else.
Right, right.
Yes, sir.
And that's for your
Yes,
retransmission and
that's
the right to use
That's
it.
right. The right to use it. Yes.
And okay, so in what you're doing now,
Mm-hmm.
nothing that I have now. I have the big package. I get all
Right.
the local and all the
Yeah.
HBOs
Right.
and all
Right.
the 300s.
The one thing you will not get now is we're not going to do Wave TV anymore. As of
That's
now.
three.
Channel 3.
I don't watch Channel 3 very often
Because
anyway.
we were
I
able
watch
to
Channel
keep
7.
We're able to keep two right now under this agreement. We're keeping WLKY and WHAS out of Louisville. We were able to negotiate with them. We were not able to negotiate with Wave at all.
Okay, so the only effect on me personally, on my cable bill or on my board,
On your
bill,
board is going to be Channel 3.
will be I'll lose Channel 3 and my rates are going up.
Your rates will go up. Yes.
Okay, so streaming has no effect on me.
No, it
None
does
of the
not.
other things
No.
have any effect
No.
on. Look, Steve just
No.
looking at me green.
And the reason we're offering this other package, the one John described without the sports, is we recognize for a lot of people were telling us, we just can't pay that much. We don't want to pay that much. The KETs, the channels, a lot of these other channels, but they're saying, I'm not watching ESPN, and ESPN and Disney are expensive.
Oh yeah,
So what we've done is basically cut the package by what, $40-some, Harvey, a month. If you want to go down to that, something more
I
than
got
1
you.
through 30,
so
but a few
this
more
is just a new layer
to
Yes.
give you a more affordable
Another
package.
another option for
of
folks if they
the
want. it.
channels we already get. You're taking some of them and putting them over here,
And giving you a
and
cheaper
well,
rate.
excluding
we're-
the higher priced
Yes, we're offering that. Yes, we're
Right.
offering that as a
Right.
separate option for you.
Right.
Because
Okay.
because the real one of the things we can't do when we negotiate these things is we can't tell you as part of the agreements how much we're paying for each individual channel. But suffice it to say, because of the rights fees that these ESPN and others pay,
Well,
the cost
public-
of sports
a
is
public-owned utility, the public should be able to be told what we're paying.
Well, the problem
That's
is,
part of the agreement. We are part of the agreement.
you have to sign non-disclosure in order to buy those channels from, and we buy as part of a group.
Right.
That we're buying these nationally as
But
part of the package. So
don't
what-
we own the plant board?
You do own the plant board,
Then
but if we
we're
we
part of the
disclose it,
agreement.
if we
if they
want
disclose it, they cut us off.
if we want to offer ESPN to our
I
customers,
understand.
Yeah, yeah.
no, seriously,
Yeah.
I agree. In a perfect world, yes, but if we want to offer ESPN to our customers, we
That's the
cannot
key,
do that.
a perfect world.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
If we tell you the price, we can do it, but then they unplug us.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So
I guess you all have answered everything that
Good.
I had, and
I'm glad.
and now
And we appreciate you,
and
sir.
if you've listened to any of these, ever since I've been on the board, I've railed about this and railed about these broadcast channels until I'm blue in the face, and it's not going to change, and it's sad. It's sad, is what it is. So
well, I'm a squeaky wheel.
I understand. I understand.
Steve's known me since school. We went to school
I want
together.
to put on the record that Greg was 4 years ahead of me.
And is there anything about Steve you'd like to share with the board?
Yes.
Not publicly. and of course, Darren and I worked together when I'm retired from Frankfurt Fire Department.
Oh,
so
okay.
Darren
Good.
and I worked
Good.
together for
So
years.
you're running with both Steve and Darren?
I've known
about
both for a long time.
Mr. Riggs, thank you for coming and talking with us
Thank
today.
you.
We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate all your answers.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is that it, Kathy? Okay. All right. We are going to have a special meeting, I believe on the 29th. April 29th, we're going to have a special meeting. We're going to do it by Zoom. It's going to be at 1 in the afternoon. Again, I want to reiterate, if you've watched this meeting here and the conversation we've had, if you do have any comments, if you get them to us by a week from Friday at the end of close of business, which is the 26th, you can go on the website, you can call us at our main phone number and get that to us, and we will be able to consider that at our special meeting we have on the 29th. That concludes this special hearing, and I'll turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir. Next is item 3.1, consider accepting the financial statements for the month ending March 31st, 2024. Mr. Denton.
Yes, thank you all. Good evening. Frankfurt Plant Board has a fiscal year that ends in June 30th of each year. What we have before you tonight are financials through or on March 31st, 2024, so 9 months of the fiscal year. What we have in your board packet is the standard stuff, but I'll just, for the community, let them know what you have in there. The statement of net position as of March 31st. We have a cash and investment schedule, our debt schedule, statement of cash flows. We have a statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position for all three main divisions and admin departments, and check registers for our two most active accounts. I'd like to just briefly do just a little bit something different today, but move over to page 22 of your board packet. This is the company-wide statement of revenue, expense, and change in net position. We've had some public discussion over the last few months about FPB's finances, which is a good thing. The more people understand what we do, why we do it, it helps for everyone to understand and make sense of everything. So first of all, I talked about this a lot, and we'll talk about it a lot during budget meetings, is the rates that the Frankfurt Plant Board charges customers are determined by four factors. One is the operating expenses. Two is a significant portion, which is capital investment, which is an infrastructure investment in electric, water, and telecom assets. The third is the debt service required on large capital projects. And the fourth is the amount of cash reserves needed to maintain a healthy company. So on page 22, let's talk first about the revenue generated from our rates. This is the total operating revenue on line 20. So you can see this is the third column through the first 9 months of the year, just under $79,900,000 for the year. When you have total operating expenses on line 50 of just over $55.5 million, giving our gross contribution of 24.3. So we're saying the revenue we bring in from rates minus our operating expenses, which are the primary field-driven expenses, give us our gross contribution, and from there we deduct our general admin expenses. On line 260, That's 18.7. And then we add our other revenue, which is other miscellaneous revenue of just under 3.2 million, bringing our net contribution to $8.2 million for the first 9 months of the year. So this is otherwise known as the increase in net assets. So something that's not represented in that 8.8 million is we expect to have $2 million booked to the financials for our unfunded liability and our pension expense. And we usually do that in June of each year. So we expect that to come down by $2 million. But something I want to talk about is the four pieces. We just covered operating expenses. So total operating expenses were just over 74 million. For the year, we have invested over $12 million, almost 12.2 million in infrastructure investment. That is significant. So we just talked about bringing in 8.8, which we think will be 6.8. We turn around and have invested 12.2, so we've passed that number already. And then we have principal payments on our debt of just over $1 million. So I just wanted to walk through that. It's one thing to look at the bottom line, but you need to understand that capital component, debt service component, and then cash reserves. You'll notice for this current fiscal year, we've drawn down cash, just about $2.2 million reduction in cash over the first 9 months, which we knew would happen. We are investing in infrastructure at a rate quicker than we are generating. And we knew that because we have some really big projects. So that's really a quick summary of where we are for the 9 months. And I have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
And I think, and you and I talked about this earlier, Dave, and I think it'd be good just for people to understand, when we fund capital projects, we basically fund them, the cost of them. Everything doesn't get done on time. And if you noticed last meeting, we had what, a valve replacement?
That'll be
Yeah, this year.
this meeting.
Yeah, and when we get to that, part of that cost is gonna flop over. So part of this money that we've got that's showing here is gonna have to carry over next year to pay for that valve, because it's all gonna come this year. That's what, I forget how many million.
Almost 2.3.
3 million, yeah. And all that's not gonna get paid, so that isn't part of this money. I mean, that cash is there, but that cash has an obligation against it come July 1st, that is gonna have to be paid then.
Right.
So it's not free I mean, it's got an obligation on it. And, we fund projects in full because to make sure we've got the money, but if they don't get done on time, that cash has to carry forward to the next year.
Yes, sir. Yep. So that's where we are for the first 9 months. Any other questions? If not, then we'll move on to the next.
Okay, so first, do we have a motion on the financials?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Financials approved. Mr. Denton, it's that time of year?
Yes, sir. The next item, we want to talk briefly with the board about the proposed budget plans for this coming year, the 24-25 year, which we'll call fiscal year 25. I have there on page 95 is a proposed schedule. You can see how we're walking through all the internal things needed to get a draft to you all. The main thing I want to accomplish tonight in talking about this is to get you all thinking about a time you would like to schedule public budget meetings. You can see on our calendar, we have put down just as a preliminary date, June 4th and June 5th. So just throwing that out there, just want to get the board's direction on public meeting dates. And the other is if the board has any board initiatives that you would like to include in this first draft, we would love to hear them and make sure we include them in the first draft. If not, we can always add them at any time. But that's the primary reason for the agenda item, and I'd be glad to talk about anything you want.
One of the things I wanted to mention, and is do you all want to do something? Last year, there's a lot in this budget, and we want to make the best use of everyone's time. But, it's a $100 million plus budget. There's a lot of lines, a lot of information, a lot of projects. If anyone is interested, and we're still gonna, if everybody's okay with it, still have the department heads come in, present everything like we've done. But if you have a particular area, and up to two of you could meet, or but up to two of you could meet with David and the department heads, and we've really got 4 major business areas. We got the telecom, the electric, water, and then what you might call admin. It's everything, human resources, the support services, all those things.
Right, yeah.
To actually sit down with David and those department heads and go through those in detail, I think 2 things it would do is it would give everybody a better feel what's all in there. And then when it comes before the board and we have department heads, if if board members want to get more involved with David and the department heads to ask questions, to sit down with them informally at your convenience and say, I want to understand more what you do here. I want to, because there is a lot going on, and inevitably, things that we may be sensitive to, the staff's not going to be as sensitive to, because they're looking at it from the business operational standpoint. We're hearing things in the community, things that are coming up to us that we want to get resolved. And if you're interested in that, we don't have to do anything formal with anything. Let David, let Gary know, and say, I want to know more about telecom. I want to understand more how Adam's operation works. I want to understand more how the customer service works. To sit down with them and spend the time, I think it would benefit everyone, because when we get in that discussion, you can bring up and say, well, you know, I sat down and talked to him 2 weeks ago, and I found this out, and everybody needs to know this. So if you're interested and you've got the time, work through Gary and David, set it up. I mean, and you don't have to, I mean, we've never had any position. I mean, if you want to talk to a department head, you know you can always pick up the phone. That's not, but, you know, I think as David's putting it together and the department heads are working with him, if you want to get involved, I think let them know and, you know, give you a better feel for it. So I just wanted to throw that out.
And maybe, I would love to learn everything about everything.
Uh-huh.
But time is of the essence.
Yeah.
And I respect everyone's time and stuff, and we can't meet more than 2 board members at a time.
Right.
One thing I might suggest as we think about is, since all of us have sort of areas of our expertise that we've sort of broken, like mine's obviously on the electric side, maybe if we were interested, each of us could kind of go down our own rabbit hole. of
Sure.
Things that we already know well. 'Cause
Yeah.
that way, we're kind of bringing that expertise back to the board, and then we're each taking turn on those questions. But I'm happy to, Travis, and go down
Yeah,
that on the electric
and just,
side.
you know, let Gary and David know what you want to do, what your schedule, who you want involved, and just, and let them put it together and spend whatever time you need to feel comfortable.
And we plan to bring the first final draft to you all on the 21st of May, that board meeting. So that last 2 weeks of May, you will have a draft in your hand to review prior to the proposed public meeting. So if you were to have those types of interactions, Mr. Cubine, you would have the full document for 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of May,
Yeah.
prior to the public, if
Yeah.
whoever wanted to go through it.
Okay.
Is that it?
Does
10 p.m. is a little late for a meeting.
Was it, we got 10 on there?
10 p.m. Yeah, 10 p.m. to 1 p.m.
Well, we thought if we started that late, it would be shorter.
And John, following up to what Jason does, I can, you know, I've kind of fallen into this thing where with Georgetown and other things have
Yeah.
dealt with water, so I'd be happy to do that if y'all wanted
Okay.
to do that.
And Catherine, whatever y'all want to do, I mean,
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'm not sure what my niche is.
you can do them all. I mean, seriously, I mean, it's whatever your all schedule will permit.
And
to
we
do
would
that.
do that in addition to like the June 4th and
Yeah.
5th
Yes,
meetings.
yeah, this would be on your own. If you want to call David and say, you know, I'd like to come by on Friday afternoon from about 1, could you have, you know, Adam there, or have, you know, Charmista there, or whatever. You know, I want to ask some questions, go through some things. It's your call.
Yeah.
And the more, I think, the more we get engaged, the more you know, and I think staff will benefit from talking to everybody too. I think that helps the staff understand where we're coming from a lot of times. Travis and I, and you just got to spend quality time in a car ride back and forth, and I know Travis benefited, didn't you, Travis? Yeah. So, so if that's okay, the 21st, and if everybody can pencil in the 4th and 5th of June and hold those times, and then we just kind of go from there. Does that work, David?
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay with everybody? Okay. Next item is public comment. Kathy?
I do not have any additional public comments.
Then I'd like to, if I may, drag Travis to, you want to come and talk about the farmer's market? He's the public, right? Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Cubine mentioned, we received a public comment from the farmer's market. As many of you may have heard already, they have a long-term goal of moving from their current location on Wilkinson to a new location on Home Street. And they are in the process of seeking some grant funding, and they partnered with the city to go through that process and have put together a request for the plant board, essentially. And Connie Limley is here this evening
she
with
here?
the farmer's market, and if I misspeak, just yell.
Does she
and
want
I'll
to come
know.
up, or?
She said she can come up and speak if the board would like to hear from her.
It's up to
or-
her.
Okay, yeah, it's up to you. essentially what the farmers market is seeking, they have some interest in potentially installing an EV charging station, perhaps doing some solar panels on their pavilion, and looking at also doing a a water fountain like is at the existing farmers market. So the ask, again, they're going out for grant funding, and like most grants, it always helps to have matching funds. The more matching funds they can come up with, the better the grant application. Connie and I spoke a little bit last week about their plans and what their needs are kind of short term, and in terms of getting this grant application in, which has to be submitted by them in the city by April 26th. Committing funds at this point may be a little bit difficult, especially on EV charging, because there's so much federal and state money available. The board has previously indicated probably not looking at short-term committing funds to EV charging. Again, there's so much federal money, hasn't been our priority. But the ask instead is to partner with them on other grant applications for an EV charging station, or partner on solar applications. So in short, the ask is they're asking the board to consider a letter of intent to partner with the farmers market on these future grant applications, so they can do their charging station and solar work and perhaps some water fountains.
And they're not asking, at this point, they're not asking for any commitment of funds or anything else, but for us to support them and recommend or be part of their grant process?
Correct. That's the way I understand it. Connie, I can't see you from up here, but am I close to hitting the mark there? Why don't you, come on up. Correct me where I was wrong there.
Yeah, thank you so much.
How you doing?
And that was great. You were not wrong with anything, Travis. One thing that would be helpful would be if you all have a ballpark price for what a charging station costs, to put that in there, because we can get a 50% matching funds from state ag development funds, but we need to have a total project cost, and we need to have some ballpark numbers. So if there are things that you were willing to work with us on, and it's all subject to change. There's lots of moving parts in this right now. None of this is set in stone. But if we could say EV charging station, $15,000, $20,000, water fountain, this much money, that would be helpful. And we wouldn't see it as the plant board promising that, but as possible project costs that are making this total cost that we can then go to the state and say, we need ag development funds.
Okay.
And then lots of other pieces will need to fall in place before anything actually happens.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you move from your current location, what's going to happen to that property? Specifically, we have an EV charging station there.
Yes.
What's going to happen to that property and that site? Do you know?
The plans are, and the market isn't wanting to move, but the word that we've gotten from the city is that there are intentions to implement the downtown master plan and build convention center hotel in that place. I don't know where things are at with that, but our most up-to-date information from the city is that we should think of 2024 as our last year that we can definitely be in our current location.
So, one thing, and we're going to talk about later on another EV charging, but have you heard what their plans are for the charging station that's there right now?
I think there are a lot of things that they need to figure out.
Okay.
My guess would be that if they're building a convention center and a hotel, that even if it came back, that it,
Wouldn't be in that location.
John,
right.
Yeah.
That's
Those
that
were
our EV charging
Yes.
station? Okay.
So, I mean,
yes, yes, it is.
when I read the letter, I assumed that they could be moved
Yeah.
to where the next place is, because that was part of that.
Yeah. So,
And we could give you both prices, what a new one would cost and what it would cost to relocate that one. I mean,
yeah.
And I think for right now, if you were willing to put in the new one, we are right now trying to make the project cost bigger, because that's the
understand.
only way that we can. Ag development is a little complicated, but we can ask the state for money, and then we can ask all of these counties for money. And the only way I can ask them for money is to have a big project cost.
Okay.
They're not all going to say yes to what I ask them for. But whether Shelby County or Owen County or Henry County says yes to $20,000, I don't know until we ask.
Sure.
So right now it's helpful to have a bigger project cost, and the reality is going to be smaller.
Good.
So
Well, and I think the big question is just what tier of charging station you want, because I think the price is dramatically different between the three.
Yeah, we had talked about a level 2.
Level
Okay,
2, yeah.
cool.
You know, similar to what's existing at the farmer's market
Sure.
location, which is, we'd always budgeted 20,000 if we're doing a level 2 station. That includes the charger plus make-ready costs, transformers, wire, whatever.
Right.
you know,
Okay.
is needed to make that happen.
Well, from my point of view, a letter of
Yeah,
support
yeah.
is obviously easy, and then numbers, Travis is standing right over there. So I think we can get you numbers. Then obviously any level of commitment we'd have to vote on.
Yeah, Travis knocked the numbers out tonight, I mean, before it goes home.
I think you already got them done, right? You did it in your head real quick?
I mean, we budget 20,000 for a level 2 station. You know, that's
Excellent.
probably a reasonable number. Yeah, I think.
And you were talking about solar panels, what, on the pavilion part or the?
That's a longer term
Okay.
thought for you all, but I know that you're doing a lot with community solar and things. So it's as much wanting to make the board aware that this, right now, the idea is that it will be state-owned property, as our current site was until recently, that has a long-term lease by the city, and that the city owns the pavilion. And so there will be another structure on Home Street that the city has slated for a redevelopment that could be a site for some type of project.
Okay.
And Ag Development has said that if something like that happened, it would count as matching funds.
Okay.
So,
Well, Connie, if you want to go solar, I know the most amazing local guy I can introduce you to. So, thank you so
Is
much.
if everybody's okay, I don't know if we need a formal motion, do we, Hans, or to do the letter and to authorize Travis to work with her to put together her numbers?
I think you'd be okay either way. Travis could put together something and send it, or the board could take a formal vote, whatever the board's pleasure is.
Why don't we do this? Do we have a motion to authorize Gary and Travis to put together a letter of support and to work with them to develop their costs for the grant application?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
thank you. And while I'm up here wearing my Frankfurt Independent Schools hat, we're also very grateful for our new water fountain on the 2nd Street playground. Thank you for that too.
Thanks, Travis. Okay, department reports. Mr. General Manager.
Sure. First is hobby formation.
Good evening. Just have a couple of things to report. Been working with some of our partners out in the community today. We were out at Kentucky State University. We helped with the Frankfurt Area Chamber of Commerce's annual reality check, which they had middle schoolers there, teaching them a little bit about financial literacy, and utilities is a big part of when you're learning how to pay your bills and the things that you need when you get a house and a job. And so we had a team out there today. We always enjoy being out there with the kids and other members of the community and other businesses that are out there. Saturday, we'll be out at the Orlando Brown House. Together Frankfurt is hosting an Earth Day event, so we will have a tent there. We'll be talking about our community solar program and again, just other things that we're doing to help our environment, help the community. We'll talk about the EV charging stations and other projects that we have going on here at the plant board. As far as Cable 10, last week we finished up, we did all of our Meet the Candidate interviews for the primary. We also did co-hosted with the Frankfurt Area Chamber of Commerce their candidate forums, and we did them here in this room. Those went well, and they're already airing on Cable 10 and on Cable 10's YouTube page. And we hope that people will take advantage of that, get to know who these candidates are, so you'll be prepared to vote on May 21st in the primary.
And you recruited, the team you put together doing all those interviews and everything, you really did a good job on that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So.
Yeah, we got the crack team.
Yeah.
Other than that, we're just continuing on with our day-to-day operations. I know Cable 10 is also baseball and softball season has started, and hopefully, if we have weather like we've had today, they'll be able to play some of those games. Last week, I think they all got rained out, so we weren't able to get all of the gear out there and get those games recorded. So again, it's spring, and we're just in full form. We're going to be gearing up for a lot more spring and summer activities. We'll be out in the community more, and if anybody wants to come out and visit, we'll let you know where we are. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Chairman, next is Network Operations Center.
Good evening. The network operations report's on page 97 in the board packet. It looks like for the month of March, the NOC entered 480 trouble calls and answered 1,764 phone calls. On the locate side of the house, the locators completed 580 locates for the month of March, and that's 5,221 so far for the year, for the fiscal year. I think that's it. Pretty cut and dry for the NOC. Unless you guys have any questions, I can answer for you.
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Chairman, next is customer service.
Good evening. Customer service reports are on pages 99 through 103. Customer service assisted 8,396 customers last month. 4,799 of those were over the phone, 1,237 walk-ins, and we had 2,283 transactions through the drive-through. A reminder that this month is budget reconciliation for our customers. So if you are a current budget customer, you will have to pay your bill in full this month. And then any new customers that wish to go on budget can sign up this month. So that's really all I have, unless you all have any questions.
What happens, we'll say someone comes in, it's budget reconciliation, they've been paying their budget, and it's a whopper.
We'll set up payment arrangements.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a few of those because sometimes you will have their electric usage in the wintertime is a little higher than what they're used to. And so we do periodically through the year try to look at those and adjust the budget through the year, but sometimes it still happens. But yes, we definitely will work with them and set up a payment arrangement so they don't have to pay a $2,000 bill at one time if that's what happens. So.
I got a quick question.
Okay.
New accounts added, 163. What is that exactly?
Those would be customers that have never had service with us. So that would be a brand new, you know, they've never had service at a previous location. They're not moving service, or 10 years ago they had service. They're just not in our.
So that's a new named person maybe moving in the community who set up service for the first time. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is our telecommunications superintendent.
Good evening. The telecom report starts on page 105 with the customer penetrations. Looks like next band is about 17% of our total customers as far as internet now, which is good. Page 106 and 107 are the outages for the month. We had 5 outages. 4 were blown fuses, basically during some storms that had popped up, and then we had 1 power inserter out on Johnson Road that burned up. Trouble calls running about average for the month, so that's pretty good. On the next band front, we're working in Duckers Village, Terra Linda, Georgetown Road. We just turned on an area over on 127 Leonardwood, some of those businesses, so we're going to try to hit those pretty hard and get some of those customers moved over, or possibly get some new customers. Real quick on the county, we mailed out 412 easements, and we've had 24 or 25 come back signed, which is good. It's about a week, so we're getting some, you know, when they come in, we explain it to them, and then we're meeting them on site, just whatever we can do to work it out, and then trying to get them to go talk to their neighbor. So, you know, trying to use some peer pressure to get those turned around. We've turned in all of the data to Bluegrass Energy. I think we're waiting on about 1,200 poles is what we're going to attach to. And they said basically within the next 90 days they would have a timeline and a dollar figure of what it's going to cost to attach to those poles. And that's the biggest area. I think KU is only like 400 poles. So as far as grant goes, be happy to answer any questions.
Where's the the new round of federal state funding that's
Right.
still in the rulemaking process. Have we heard any more on that?
No, the only thing I heard was, and actually I think you had sent it to me, was they're wanting us to, any provider, to log in and to check the database and the maps to make sure that they're all good and clean, so that when they do open them up, you're not going to have multiple people apply for the same areas. And I think part of it's to clean up the original grants that we're
Right.
under now, to get all those addresses released and get everything ready for the next round. So that's where that's at.
What kind of time frame for getting the easements are you
What-
under?
Well, the sooner the better. I mean, we're pretty much going on and moving forth a lot of the engineering, a lot of the make ready, because we can't wait for every easement to come in. Now, we won't build until the easement is in hand, but we're trying to do all the engineering, all the make ready and all that stuff on the front end. There might be a chance that there's an easement that is denied and we have to do a redesign, which might change materials, would increase engineering costs just depending on how big a parcel we're talking about. So, but we're trying to push forward. The sooner the better. We actually met with Eric Wisman last week, and he said he would help out. We gave him a list of ones that we had already got rejected on, was in Harvey Land, because we had started that project before we actually signed the grants. So, and he said he was going to try to help us out there. So we're trying to look at any avenue we can get to move forward.
Chairman, he reached out to us.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I think that's great for Wisman to help, and I know other magistrates and were willing to help. I just didn't know how long we were going to wait to ask for help. And so you're going to wait till you get a rejection?
Well, we gave him the list of every address that was going to be in his area that he had asked for.
Right.
So he can start working on some of those. We gave him name. We didn't give him a copy of the easements, but we gave him the names and the people in those areas. The ones that we specifically gave him I think there was 5 or 6 Harvey Land, Ball Knob area that had already told us no, that we had approached multiple times over the last probably 7 or 8 months. And he actually knew a couple of them that, I guess he went to school with one person. He's like, he was going to try to help us out and see if we can get them. But, yeah.
Well, we really appreciate that. So I'm glad you're taking advantage of that.
Any other questions?
In our county judge, actually, Mr. Miller reached out to me twice to say we can update them what
Sure.
happened to Majesty and help us for the easement. We will really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of work in progress.
Yeah.
We have to reach out to our customer, send them the information, and hopefully we can have one-to-one personally talk. Eventually we will find out how many of them we're going to be really have a difficulty. Those is the definitely we need the most help.
Yeah, we have to give, I don't know the exact number of days, but you have to give so many days notice. And so that was this first round as far as sending a letter. That gives them time to review it. And like I said, that we haven't followed back up since we sent those out. We're kind of giving that period. But like I said, we've had 25 come back in the door. And with the magistrates, it's great, but we still like to meet with the customer, try to explain what's going on. We also have to have a notary, so we've had all of our engineering staff notarized, so they can go on weekends, nights, and sign it at the customer's leisure. So.
Great.
Thank you.
The chairman next is electric department, our superintendent,
Good evening. You'll turn to page 109 and you're actually missing 3 pages of that. My fault on that one. The first packet I sent to Kathy had the wrong last page, and I sent her just the last page of the second go around, and she forgot the first 3 pages. So anyway, just for our SAIDI numbers for the month, our SAIDI numbers are running still 44.39. On our pie chart, which you don't see, but normally you do see it, we have about 11 total customers affected. I mean, we had 11 total outages, I'm sorry, for the month. And then you do see the page 109, which shows the top 10 outages, and you'll see that we had 184 customers affected by the 11 outages. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Good evening again, everyone. The SEPA report for this month begins on page 114 of your board package. Our total SEPA bill for February was $81,687. That's the same it's been pretty much every month. It's right in that range. The net payment from SEPA was $112,560 for a profit to FPB of $30,873, which brings us to, through February of 2024, a net benefit of $273,086 for SEPA. So tracking pretty well.
You happy with that, Mr. Dent?
We had budgeted a net credit of 1.4 million, so between the fiscal year difference, I think we're going to be okay.
Okay.
All right, now also just hit AMI real quick. We are at 16,548 electric installs, 12,042 water installs, which puts both departments in that 70 to 75% complete range. So we're kind of moving right along, business as usual at this point with AMI. So happy to answer any questions. Good.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman, for the KYMEA, I really don't have much new before. It is pretty much a follow-up.
Right.
But if you have a question, for the safety.
Good evening. Safety report starts on 117 and 118. We had 0 OSHA recordables for the month of March, which is excellent. And for vehicle accidents, we had 2, one for support service and one for cable. One received no damage at all, and then the other for the van at the service center received quite a bit of damage, $2,500 worth. And last month we had CPR, first aid, and AD training. It was completed for the month of May 7th through the 10th. We have work zone flagger training, and EKU is going to be coming in teaching that course. May 13th through the 15th we have forklift training, and that'll be at the service center and the water treatment plant. And Kimi will be instructing that.
You gonna sign up for that, John, or not?
Already have.
Yeah.
Forklift training.
And flagger.
Yeah, you said something about flagger as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let me know which.
Flag, you can have that.
Retirement's that tough? You need a second job?
Yeah. And there will also be a competent person for trenching and excavation. I'll be putting that on.
There you go.
Yeah, so-
And for the forklift, there'll be a responsible adult for me, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chairman, next is the water distribution.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. The water distribution monthly reports on pages 119 through 121. We had 6 new services. We had 0 main breaks and 0 outages for a month, so that doesn't happen very often. Matter of fact, we had one last night. So yeah. So besides the normal board report, we've completed a main installation on Shelby Street. We did part of Shelby Street towards the flood wall. We're working on switching services on that and getting that completed. We're about 5% complete on our annual flushing program. That's off rolling. We're doing mainly in the downtown area. We started down at the Capitol Annex too. We've made the tap on the 14, the 20. We had to tie those together. Then we'll be running the line over to their new pit that they're installing. And then after that, we'll be scheduling to have the outage down there to cut and cap the 14 and 20 because the new structure is going to go over top of the old water main.
How long an outage will that be?
You can make the outage as long as you'd like.
Well, it's already been scheduled. It's going to be on a weekend, and we had to check with the governor. And
will it be hours or a day or?
No, it'll probably be hours.
Okay.
It probably, if everything the biggest fear when you're trying to cut water off in the older parts and the older mains is the valves holding. Right. Sometimes we may have to back up on valves, but we're going to do a little test run and make sure we can get it off. So once we get the water off and drained off, we just cut the pipe, we cap them, we block them, we pour concrete, and so it usually doesn't take that long, as long as we don't run into any problem. Yeah,
okay.
So, other than that, that's all I got. Any questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman, is next the water treatment plant.
Good evening, everyone. For the month of March, the water treatment plant treated 217,172,000 gallons of water for an average daily production of 7 million gallons a day. Lock 4 averaged 10,844 cubic feet per second for an average of 7 billion gallons a day, and there was 3.2 inches of rainfall recorded in the watershed for this month.
Any questions? Me?
Well, I'm next anyway.
He's going to stay up
Okay.
there for the next one, I
Okay.
think.
Anything else, Gary? Okay. Next item, 6.1, consider award of bid number 1800 for water treatment plant filter isolation valve replacement project to Herrick Company for $2.447 million. Brandon?
The filter isolation valves at the water treatment plant are due for replacement. The project consists of replacing 49 valves and actuators. We opened bids on March the 19th, and Herrick was a low bidder at $2.447 million, and a total of $3,077,670 will be budgeted over fiscal year 24, or I'm sorry, 24-25, 25-26. Herrick has performed many jobs at the water treatment plant over the years, and they do an awesome job. So we're more than thrilled to have them.
This is budgeted over the remainder of 23-24 and
Yeah, I was going to
24-25. Which one is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say 25? It's this year, next year.
This year, next year.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm
The
sorry.
end of this year and next year.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Well, I guess the question I have, following back up on what Catherine just mentioned, do we have is this in the budget at all for this year? Will we need a budget amendment or to include this in the budget?
No, I don't believe we need an amendment.
Okay.
And I will talk with Brandon as we tighten up budget discussion. I know Brandon had mentioned a lot of lead time on the valves. It's possible this could bleed into fiscal year 26. So
Okay.
as we tighten up the budget, we'll look more at spacing out that money. But
Okay.
but I don't believe we need any amendments. at this
Anything
time.
more for this year?
No,
This
sir.
year, the one we're in now.
No,
Okay.
we have 1.2 million for this year, which covered the engineering was 260,000.
Right.
So
Saw that.
we got that, and then we'll basically just carry over, and then we will have to add. 'Cause
Yeah,
we just had
for
a
the
million.
rest of it,
We had
right,
$1 million for
yeah.
next year, so we'll have to
Add some money on that.
Yeah, like
Okay.
870,000 or something like that. But
Yeah.
this project has been in there. I look back as far as 2012 and 13. So
And
it's
these
been in there that long.
these are old valves. I mean, these are 50-year-old valves.
Yes, 40 of the 49 are original.
Okay.
One failed back in the early 2000s. We had replaced, and then we did a project in 2012 or 13 and had 8 of them replaced, and we're going to replace them again, hopefully.
We're going to replace. Every single valve.
Every single valve down there will be replaced.
Good.
I just a side note, I did some math on some of these valves. 8 of these valves have operated 36,500 times. They operate twice a day and have done it for 50 years. So these, I mean, we have
Amazing.
really got our
money's worth.
I
So
mean,
you're saying they're out of warranty?
it was like 2 years ago or something like that. Yeah.
Well,
like 35,000 was the cutoff, I think.
And just as another editorial comment, as you were talking about, and David was talking about earlier, this is an example of a important piece of infrastructure that can't fail.
Yes.
And we have to make sure that it's up to date. We have to make sure we have enough money in the budget, and by having the money in reserve, we don't have to go out and bond this money. We don't have to, that's part of what running this agency is about. And not only David, but the folks in the individual branch lines like Brandon and Charmista and Travis and Adam, they pay great attention to looking not just what we need to do tomorrow and the next day, but what we need to do years down the road. And I really, really appreciate them for that.
Well, in fact,
Thank you.
watching the Louisville channels on my cable, there's a water district in southern Indiana that had put off water, I won't say the name, repairs, maintenance for years. And finally, when they got to the point that all the water was running brown, did they say, now we got to fix it? And they don't have any money budgeted for it. They skipped on their preventive maintenance, they cut corners, and now all of a sudden they've got huge bills to go in and start rebuilding part of the system, and they have no money, and now they're looking at huge rate increases to make those repairs, because they just thought, well, we'll just wait till next year, and if you keep putting it off. And, you know, like, and I think what John just said, you know, the staff in all the business lines try to keep up the best they can, and things can always break. But when they see stuff coming, they bring it up, and we have a chance to try to stay even with it. So you all do a great job.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I'd like to make a motion to award bid number 1800 for the water treatment plant filter isolation valve replacement project to Herrick Company at the terms discussed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
6.2, consider acceptance of 1898 and Company time of use rate report and discuss setting a public hearing for electric tariff revisions. Travis, and we have a familiar guest.
We do. He's back, yeah. And I will be very brief so we can just hand it right over to him. Am I good to take over here, Ryan? Yeah. I was bringing up Craig's presentation here. So at the October meeting of last year, the board considered several PURPA shall consider standards, which were quite lengthy, not necessary to go through them all again here, but the end result of that, the board declined to adopt the shall consider standards. They were optional, but as a matter of just keeping in line with our customer needs, the board directed staff to go forward with a time of use rate study, with the intent of these time of use rates would be, of course, voluntary for those customers that want them. The reason being is it kind of checks two boxes for us if we have it in place. It helps with energy efficiency. It encourages customers to use energy off-peak, which helps us. And it also helps with EV adoption. So if you have a time of use rate, that's good for electric vehicles owners so they can charge off our peak and make benefit of those low rates. So again, I'll hand it over to Craig. Just one more thing before I do. Once Craig's done with his presentation, there are a couple other tariff items I would like to piggyback on this public hearing if it pleases the board. One item is when we did the cost of service study last year, there was a typo in a lighting rate. It's a very, very minor thing, but it did go in the public hearing with that typo, so I think addressing it at a new public hearing is a good thing to do to make sure everything's transparent. The other item I'm asking the board to consider, the current net metering application fee requires a $10 check. I think it's been in there probably since the policy was adopted. Excuse me, with your application you had to submit a check. It's really just not worth anybody's time to track down a $10 check. It's kind of a nuisance for customers and their vendors as well to try and come up with a check and then somebody has to track it. I think the original intent was we don't want people applying that didn't really have intentions of putting solar on the roof, but that's just not been the case. I mean, most people that apply, they go forward with it. So I think it's just an unnecessary burden. We also had a public comment related to net metering. I can do that now or at the end. It's,
you want to go and cover it on the aggregate?
Sure, yeah. So essentially, we've had a request from a customer related to net metering, asking the board to consider aggregate net metering, which in short terms, what the concept would be, say you're a residential customer, you have a house and a garage, both of those services have their own meter. Your house is the high user, but your garage has much better sunlight. So the ask is to consider allowing customers to put the solar on one of their metering points and transfer the credits to their other account, which I think is a reasonable request the board can consider. As long as we put good safeguards on it that we're not just moving credits from any customer to any customer, any location to any location. So one idea we were considering, if we want to do aggregate net metering, maybe we limit it to just residential or just 30 kW and below. We could also put limits on there about has to be one contiguous parcel, maybe a good safeguard to keep it from just kind of getting out of control, if you will, where it's just not tracked very well.
And did you say, Catherine, there's 17?
Well, Andy McDonald had said that there's 17 states that already allow this, and and I think certain restrictions, it's going to serve its purpose without getting out of hand.
Yeah.
And Kentucky does allow this as part of what we, in terms of our statutes, and net metering statutes, that the.
Yeah, I would like to research that a little further, but I don't think we're limited in terms of what, I think it's, let me research it a little bit more, but I think it's at the board's
We certainly will be
pleasure.
able to find examples of policies of other utilities and use this to copy off of and make sure that those safeguards are there. I feel fine about it. If we're able to do it under statute, I'd be happy, doing it at a public hearing.
And I think you said, Travis, we're less than 0.5%.
We're at about, so the original net metering policy was up to 1% of our system peak we would allow net metering, right? And we're at about half at that limit so far. So we're not, near going over that. And again, I think we're in agreement. It's as long as there's some reasonable safeguards there, it doesn't cause undue risk. So.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it makes sense. I think the two safeguards you mentioned, the parcel, continuous parcel, is good. But also definitely we would want to have it the same customer name or account, because like a mall situation where you would have, tenants and then this and it could get blurry. But it's great. I think it's a really simple, straightforward one, and I think it would help a lot of people. So.
Okay, great. Yeah.
How do you feel about it being restricted just to residential?
I think we could open up a little bit more. What is it 50 kW is our?
30 kW is the current net metering cap. Anything over 30 kW goes to the avoided cost rate. So it's 30.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to align it then with the 30 kW.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're getting credit for anyway. So
right.
If we go to the avoided cost, it's a whole nother.
Right. Yeah. Whole different thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. Here's Craig.
To our guest.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good to
see
see everyone
sir.
again.
See you, Craig.
Thank you for having me back. So hopefully this presentation will be a little more concise than some of the ones I've done previously. Just one topic to talk about today. But Travis did a great lead-in. We're here just to talk about time of use rates. We have gone through an analysis basically to develop some optional time of use rates for your customers. What I'm going to do today is kind of talk a little bit about it in general about time of use rates. I think you're all very aware of what they are, so I didn't go into deep detail on that. But really just the process we went through, how we analyzed it and how we developed it, and what we're recommending, and then just some other considerations. So I think most people are aware of time of use rates, but it's just a rate structure that's going to vary with set periods throughout the day that stay the same through the season or through the year, where you have an on-peak and an off-peak rate, where the on-peak rate is going to be higher than what your standard rate is, and the off-peak rate is generally lower. And the point of that is to align what your customers pay with what it costs you to serve them, is generally the intent. Two common strategies I've laid out here is there's two-part time of use rates and there's three-part time of use rates we're going to talk about today. A two-part rate is typically what you see. There's just an on and an off peak period, and it can be seasonal, summer, winter. Some people have shoulder seasons in there as well if they vary differently. But for the most part, during the day, you've got one off peak time period and one on peak time period. We're also going to talk about a three-part time of use rate, and that's where you can have this go either way. There's still the on and the off peak. In the case we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about a super off peak rate that goes very low overnight. But there's also, you can do the opposite of this if you've heard of concepts such as critical peak pricing. Sometimes there's a super on-peak rate where in certain times of the month it would be higher than the on-peak rate. But that's usually not set in stone. That's usually just occasionally. But that's the basic concepts of time of use. So what are the goals and what did we think about when we were developing this for the Frankfurt Plant Board? We've talked a lot in the past about the uniqueness of your power supply structure with KYMEA and how it's a lot of your power supply is based on that fairly high CP demand charge, or coincident peak demand charge, and that drives a ton of your cost. And the energy cost actually is fairly low at 3.75 cents right now, I think. So in reality, your costs don't vary with time. And so you think, well, why would we offer time of use rates? And it's really, the purpose is it's really to drive customer behavior towards that coincident peak hour and getting people to shift their use away from that. And a lot of the analysis has been to come in with time periods and seasons that fit that time frame
to where you're trying to always capture that CP hour in the on-peak period. So basically you're trying to get people to shift their electric load off of the on-peak period, so they're lowering their load when that CP hour may happen. And that's mutually beneficial to everyone, because if they shift their load from today to more off-peak rates, their bill is going to go down. But also, if in the process of doing that, their load is lower when that CP hour happens, that's lowering the cost burden for everyone in the system. So mutually beneficial for both, if done the right way. So knowing that our focus is going to be on framing this around that KYMEA CP demand hour, we started by looking at when those hours are. So what this chart shows is 4 years of data from 2020 through 2023 of the time that the CP hour happened. So we're not looking at what the actual peak was. We're not really concerned about that at this point. But the x-axis or the y-axis of it is the actual hour of the day it happened. So it's in military time. So you can see a lot of those in the afternoon, right around 1600 or 4 o'clock is when your peaks happen. As you get into the other months, sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon. So this was kind of the driving factor that we looked at in figuring what are the appropriate seasons for you. Now, when I've done this in the past for, say, you've got a large vertically integrated utility, we're probably doing some statistics to maximize the difference between variable costs over time periods, and there's lots of stats that I have to look up what they mean when I run them. But this is really more, for you, it's really more of a visual look at what is right for you. So we saw consistently between May and September, it's always an afternoon peak. It never fluctuates between morning and afternoon. So we determined that's going to be the summer period. And then once you get into April, October, and then spreading out from there, there's a chance it's going to be a morning peak, there's a chance it's going to be an afternoon peak. So we kind of have to capture both of those within the on and off peak periods. So at this point, we defined what our seasons are going to be. So May through September for summer, and then winter or non-summer is April through October, or October through April.
Real quick, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing where the morning and the hours are.
Basically, if you see like each 4 years is in January. So January, they were all morning peaks, and February. But in March, 1 year you had a 2 o'clock peak. The others were around 8 o'clock. And like if you go to October and November, you've got afternoon, afternoon, morning, afternoon, and then afternoon, morning, 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 and then so on. So basically, here's a morning peak, and there's an afternoon peak.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your y-axis is the hours of the
time of day. Yeah, so that's military time. So
yeah, that's what was throwing me because it didn't go to 24. It just sorry, my eyesight's a little off right now.
That's all right. It didn't show up very well.
Okay, so interesting. So what you're just stating is the peak. You're not the magnitude of the peak.
The magnitude of the peak is not relevant. It's actually in the model. We can look at it. We have a chart for that too.
Gotcha.
But to determine what the time periods are and what the seasons are, we didn't really need to look at that.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks.
Okay. So, and really what we're trying to isolate is we don't really like having those 2 time of day on peak periods, but you kind of have to. Without having you could potentially have like 3 seasons and have just January and February be winter, and then shoulder periods, things like that. But our thought was this is going to be an optional rate. It's new. You don't want to overcomplicate it when you're first rolling it out.
And it will only really apply to customers who have AMI. Is that right?
You will need an AMI meter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're looking at all customers or just residential customers?
We talked about this. The way this is developed was this will start rolling out as a residential option only. Okay. Certainly you could take this concept and roll it right into any of the other commercial classes with the way we ended up designing it.
Can you help me for a second, Travis, just understand the behavior that's kind of happening resident? So is this residential right now, or is this
is system? So, because again, your CP costs are based on the system load and when that peak happens.
So can you help me a little bit understand the behavior going on here? Like someone gets home from work at 3:30 because they work for the state, they click on all their lights and boom, that's what's happening.
Yep.
Turn the air conditioner
so
up.
In the summer, yeah, it's air conditioning load really drives summer peaks. In the winter, it's heating. That's why you're getting those morning ones.
So it's a combination of people maybe getting home from work, turning on their house, but also the air conditioner ramping up with the heat of the afternoon, kind of on its own.
Yeah.
Are we looking at part of this is, I know Glasgow did a system where they could tamper with everybody's air conditioner and move it around a little bit. Is that what you're?
So that's more of a
management?
demand response, like
Yeah.
residential load control. That's actually probably a good option for you to consider as well, potentially.
Okay, because it seems like if a lot of this is built in automatically because they're AC, they set their temperature and walk away. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I know mine, I set mine for the year
Yeah.
and I'm done. You're not going to have a lot of people being able to customize their, without going in and
Yeah,
really
with this, I
tinkering.
mean, the behavior change for this is getting in your head, you know, when you come home at 5 or 6 o'clock, or when you're done with dinner, don't run the dishwasher, delay it for 2 hours. Don't do laundry between 4 and 6 o'clock PM. So it's just making incremental behavior changes that's going to shift your load off of that on-peak period is really what it comes down to. And then once you get into programmable thermostats, things like with the morning, you can preheat your house from, say, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. and have that heat come on earlier and then drop back down where it doesn't do that. So you're kind of preheating, pre-cooling around those ranges with smart thermostats as well.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm playing a little devil's advocate here. Is
Yeah.
that okay? Well, so, you know, I work with utility customers, and there's a very similar concept with peak demand and stuff like that. And to get one facility manager to implement it versus 3,000 residents is, you know, already hard. So let me just ask you this. Would we be doing anything with the AMI, having an app that they're able to see how much they save at the end of the month? Or, I mean, you have to gamify it to some degree, is my guess.
And that's one of the recommendations. The success of programs like this depend a lot on how well you market it and how well you push it.
Yeah.
Is this just another option, or is this something you actually want people to opt into? But there are a lot of apps and things like that will allow people to both come into, you know, your web portals and say do comparisons on which rate would you be better off on, and also see how you would track and see your hourly, things like that. So those types of technologies are out there. They're not necessarily cheap.
Yeah.
On a utility of by, you know, scale wise.
Well, I don't mean to grind your presentation to a halt.
No, you're right.
Especially, I'll just throw this one other thing out, and then we can keep rolling. And once
Okay.
again, I'm hoping I'm maybe hitting some stuff you're going to hit. It seems like early adopters, really people who are buying Teslas, people who are putting solar panels up. This is our target. They learn it, then they tell their neighbor, "Hey, this is great. I saved $400 last month," and they're like, "Whoa, how'd you do that?" That's probably our target audience, right?
I think you need an active energy user, somebody that watches their bill closely, watches their use closely to really get on board first. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you're trying to draw in the people that become those active energy users and become more knowledgeable, and that's
Okay.
what you want out of your customer base.
Awesome. Thank you for my questions. Yeah.
We do work on an app right now, as I know. The second part is, I do want to say that in the front. When you have a time day rate, right, you can have active users try to save their money on the low side. When you have a lower price or super low, but we intend to forget when you choose time-day rate, you also have a high price. The high price is the time you absolutely need it.
Yeah.
You need that air conditioning when it's a 90 or 95. So if you choose to say, I want to save energy, maybe your house going to reach 85%. So I just want to not blindly walk into that. Because time day rate is, I want to use is a great tool. It's a volunteer base.
Volunteer, for sure.
And it takes a long time. Eventually, I'm glad you're saying that. It's a change behavior, but it's rare.
It's not going to be a huge bill impact for the customers. They're not going to see a $400 savings. They're going to see it's very incremental in what you save. But I think a lot of people that are on these rates, you know, get positive feedback by making those changes and knowing they're helping out and knowing they might be shifting to, you know, a time where there's more clean energy, things like that.
There are many states actually require if you have solar installation, then you have to move into time.
Okay, makes sense.
That's kind of a part of it. It's not our policy currently. I'm just saying that's a part of the option.
Well, it would seem like, well, we're not there right now, but as we look at in the future, down the road at power supply and power market, there may be some advantages to us when we bid out power from suppliers who want to sell based on time of day, who'll sell, will sell you power at this price after these hours, but this price, I mean, there may be some more significant savings down the road as we get out into the market and, you know, start pricing some of this.
And that's why I think it was a smart option for you all to just start this process now. Have an optional rate. Get your customer service people used to it. Get your customers used to seeing it. Let the early adopters have it because they want to. And then that kind of lays the groundwork down the road for when you may need to, cost-wise, make it more of an opt-out than make an opt-in, opt-out versus opt-in.
How many utilities are doing this?
I would say a very large proportion of utilities have an optional time of use rate.
Okay.
And we've done, that's national benchmarking we've done for some projects. Very few at this point have mandatory for all customers, but they're there and they're starting to be more prevalent. But like you said, even in California now, they're moving to where like even net metering is going away. And if you have solar, you're on a highly differentiated time of use rate. So it's definitely becoming more prevalent, and it's because it reflects cost, and that's what people are trying to get to. But it's also harder to communicate with your customers on why. When it becomes mandatory, that becomes a bigger issue to communicate.
I think Ms. Cuba and also you has a very good point. I think the change behavior, we talk residential and you talk about air conditioning. Accumulated is a lot low, but individual, each one is not a lot.
Right.
But I think it's going to be very valuable to this utility after 2029 if we can roll out some program for commercial industry at a really high peak hour or time. We can have agreement, the customer can save power to us to avoid the market go to $2,000 instead of $30.
Yeah.
Those can be very valuable to customer and to us.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to do that before then, because the key will be to establish a consistent pattern to know how much energy we need to buy to cover peak. And it's going to take years of changing those habits, and so you know, and we couldn't do this without the AMI, so it's all very important timing.
And I'm very much in support of us getting our toe in the water and doing this. I think it's important. I just want to make sure if we're going to do this that we're ready to support people who really want to be our advocates and our, you know, we don't just go, oh, well, good luck with that. You know, we're ready to move as fast as they're willing to move.
And I think that's a great way to term it, is your customer are being advocates for you and being able to have that influence on maybe their neighbors or people they talk to. And eventually the more people can be on this type of rate and react to it, it benefits the whole system.
Yeah, and I mean, one advantage we have in Frankfurt is we have the Frankfurt telephone system, which I think something happens and within about 6 hours, almost everyone in town knows about it very quick. It's amazing how it works for good and bad, you know.
Well, if my house gets to 85, I'm over at Steve's at 4.
Well, and we don't want a situation if the house does get to 85, then, you know, somebody in the household says, the plant broke, turned up my heat. And it's like, no, you chose.
And those, like I said, with those, the residential like load control programs, you're usually only cycling them off for like 50 minutes an hour. So you might have like 4 cycles where a fourth are cycled off for 50 minutes and another fourth for, so you're not really, you're not off for an hour. It's you know, when it's 100 degrees out, it's probably noticeable. But you're also paying the customers to participate, so.
Right, and I had that in Florida. I never even noticed it at all.
Is KU still doing their program where they cut off, like in the afternoons, at certain peaks, they cycle you off for on your air conditioning?
I'll need to check. I was thinking they retired that, but
I mean, I used to have it a long time ago, and then I don't have it now, and I just wondered if they, because there was some problem, but I mean, I just wondered if they were still doing that.
I'll need to double check. I was thinking they had some problems and stopped doing it, but I could be wrong on that. Another thing, on that same note, so our AMI vendor does offer gadgets that does just exactly, so with the AMI network being deployed and out there, I think it's an easier step to make that jump than it would have been, you know, a few years ago without AMI, because the network is there and there's kind of an obvious path forward on that. So if the board wants to consider that, I think there will be some legwork to do to understand. You know, I think KU's was like $20 a month savings. You know, what is that right number? So there would be some things there to be done.
I know a guy that does that.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go to slide 3?
Same chart.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we transition. This is the same data in the chart. So now we've picked our seasons. Like, okay, what are our time periods now? So this is a balance of you're really trying to make sure you capture that CP hour in whatever the time frame is, but you don't want it too long. So for the summer, and this is weekdays only, the top part I'm just going to do the 2-part rate, is weekdays from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Now, we probably could have tightened that down to 2 to 6, because you're really not hitting 6, you're hitting 5 sometimes. But if as things spread out, as you get more grid scale solar on your system and more solar, that peak is going to shift out over time. So that was probably the rationale for making it go till 7 instead of 6. You could probably get away with 6 now. And then for the winter, where you have to capture both the morning and the afternoon, it's 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning, and then the same 2 to 7 p.m. in the evening. So you've got more hours in the winter and short of only 5 hours in the summer. And then the bottom chart introduces it's basically if you did the 3-part time of use rate, super off-peak rate, same on and off-peak with a super off-peak from midnight to 6 a.m., drop the rate way down, and that's, again, to encourage, promote EV charging overnight, or any load overnight. But for residential, that's likely going to be EVs.
And I could definitely see those 3 for residential, but I could see that 4th one for industrial and commercial customers, because you really want to get them aligned with what we're buying. So.
Yeah. And sometimes time of use definitely works. Sometimes there's other demand response type programs that work better for commercial and industrial. Okay, so that we've got our seasons, we've got our hours. Then we got to figure out where are you in there? We started this project planning on using some NREL data, kind of like we've done with some of our previous solar analysis, that gives us a residential hourly load profile for Frankfurt based on your geography, all that good stuff. And we had that, started down that, and then we asked Travis, you guys have partial AMI. Can you give us a sample, just pull a bunch of AMI meters for your system that's actual data for 12 months? So we did that, and we compared that to the NREL data, it was res stock or whatever it's called, and I didn't think they lined up well. The NREL data didn't capture your summer peaks as well. So we scrapped that and used actual data. So we have a sample of 37 customers, and I was pleased with the range of them. So we had a couple that were just barely any load or weren't full years. We dropped a couple out, but it was a good range of small users, big users, and an average that's not too far from your system average residential. So I felt good about using this when we're just trying to estimate the billing determinants in each block, basically. So when we did that and ran that through 12 months of hourly data, we come up with this is basically about 8% of the hours in the year are summer on peak, about 15% in winter on peak, and then the rest is all going to be off-peak hours. So that's, again, you're off-peak most of the time. Weekends are all off-peak, and just weekdays during those time periods of the on-peak hours. So with this, we can start to make some calculations. So one of the things we like to do is understand, what's the true cost basis if you did this fully costed out. And this chart kind of probably looks familiar because I think we did some analysis on EV charging rates on what that CP hour looks like when you put it in. So we did a similar analysis here. I won't step through the entire thing, but the gist of it is we took that CP demand cost of these customers, basically what their load was at the time of the CP each month, and we figured out what those kilowatts are for the year, and put all the cost of that CP demand charge in the on-peak period. And then the rest is you've got your KYME energy, 3.75 cents. We pulled in distribution costs from the cost of service study, looking at the average amount you pay for distribution is about 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And then so that kind of captured your power supply and your customer or your distribution piece. And the long and short of this is if you had a fully costed time of use rate, it would be about 29 cents a kilowatt hour in the on-peak in the summer and 5.9 cents in the off-peak. And then the winter, you'd have about 24 cents a kilowatt hour and that same 5.9 cents. So about a 4 to 5x differential, the ratio between on-peak to off-peak. In my experience, that's too high for an intro time of use rate you're trying to get to your customers. But we wanted to show you that if you did have that true cost of service based, that's what it would need to be to have it purely lined up. And honestly, and if we shrunk that on-peak period from 2 to 6, that would spike even more on the on-peak period because you're cramming the same cost into fewer hours. So this is knowledge information, kind of like with the EV charging rates. This is what it would have to be. But for an optional rate, I don't think that's necessarily necessary for your system. So our goals for developing a time of use rate for you is to be, this is really about offering an additional option for your customers. You've got people that want this, they want to be active in their energy management, and this is giving that to them. And if they are shifting their load because of it, it's mutually beneficial to the system. We think it should be optional, not mandatory. I don't think that was ever in question. When we design this, we design it to be revenue neutral.
Explain that.
I'm sorry?
Explain revenue neutral.
And that's kind of when we will take the billing determinants of those 37 sample customers, and we will figure out what revenue that generates at your current residential rate. And then we will design the time of use rates, shifting into the different rates, to where it creates the same exact revenue after 12 months.
So then as the Pillsbury Doughboy, when you go the lower rate during the peak, you go to the lower rate to encourage people not to go to peak times.
Yeah.
Where's that other cost
So
pop
effectively, you're paying less in the off-peak hours than you would have normally and more in the others. If you make no changes to your behavior at all, you'll end up paying the same amount. If you start to shift and get some of that off-peak, you will experience energy savings, and with that goes revenue erosion for the utility. I think typically with optional new time of use rates, I would be shocked if you saw 10% of your customer base opt into this in the first year. If that, you might eventually get to 10%.
Then how does that 10% get recovered?
Over time through budget adjustments, things like that. That's why you start these optional, so you can almost see how much revenue erosion you get.
And then would that pop out, with the residentials, but especially if you then got into other customers?
Sure.
That would affect schools, government, businesses that operate during the day, right?
Yeah. But a lot of times, we talk about things like church rates. A lot of times, this time of use is perfect for churches because they're on weekends.
Yeah,
and if
Sundays and nights,
unless it's like a school that's there 7 days a week, time of use rates are great for them because most of their load is off peak and they can benefit from it. And that kind of eliminates the need for end use rates like schools and churches and government, things like that.
Well, let me ask you this just philosophically.
Yeah.
I heard you say operational load loss and stuff. It seems like as we move forward in the future, especially 2029, and we start to help people within our grid manage their energy better, and we're taking on that additional role, thereby trying to bring as little power in the community or bringing it at the right time so that we can save everybody money. Is there not an ability to increase our percentage of our pass-through costs to kind of cover that additional service we're providing as the power goes down in kilowatt hours or
For sure. I think that would get
shifts?
picked up in annual budgeting, rate adjustments for everything.
Okay, cool.
But it's slow and steady. But yeah, if you're like I went through a couple of rate cases where they were switching to mandatory time of use, and they literally had a recovery mechanism for the revenue erosion that was guaranteed for
Well, I
what
would
they
definitely
own.
make sure we decouple those two, because I would hate for us to penalize ourselves for doing more for our customers and helping them.
The best of all worlds would be able to bid for power that matches what our time of use is, so that we're buying, when we're giving people a cheaper rate, we're buying power at a cheaper rate from an energy generator.
But usually what you're saying is as the power comes through here, we mark it up a certain amount for our administration and stuff. And if we're getting less power, so you're saying save power, just cheaper.
The goal is, remember, the rates design, the on-peak cost is all that CP in the on-peak period.
Right.
If the CP comes down, that covers the revenue erosion.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
So,
okay, I just want to make sure we continue to
because the energy's kind of the same either way.
Yeah, I got you. I just want to make sure we keep
Yeah.
incentivizing
No,
ourselves.
there's not a zero risk of revenue erosion, but I would say it's minor for the adoption I would expect you to have. I don't think it's going to cause you budget issues. I'll put it that way.
You're telling us this while David's out of the room.
Yeah.
Good man.
He was back there.
David's taken to his bed back there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. What else did I miss? Oh, so, yeah, cost base is too large of a differential. Initial rate offerings, typically we say, no more than like 2 times the on to off peak ratio. You can, basically the bigger that differential is, probably the more impact you're going to get, because it forces people to shift, but it also scares people away from opting in. So I think starting low and building over time, expanding that differential is usually a best practice. It's not really, I wouldn't call this training wheel rates, because I've seen some training wheel rates where there's almost no differential. With what we're recommending, there's a little bit more where you can see it. And again, like I said, we've kind of said this all along, considering that third block with the super off peak rate, as you get more EVs on your system, I take advantage of this. That my car, I now have an EV. I can plug it in, but it doesn't kick on until I say it to. It does, and it still charges overnight. And I like it because I know, and I live in Kansas, which means overnight it's almost 100% wind generation. And that makes me feel good because I'm not using anything else but wind to charge my car. So, okay, so skipping all the detailed calculations, what we did was design 2 rates, a 2-part and a 3-part. The 2-part rate has a differential of 1.5 times. So that means the on-peak rate in the summer is 1.5 times the off-peak rate. And then the winter off-peak is even less than that. So it's just 10.7 cents to 8.9 cents. This is a very good starter rate. This is kind of easing into it without too much of a differential, but enough to make a difference, enough to notice it. I think there's a line where you don't have much of an impact. Again, the reason the winter on-peak rate is lower than the summer on-peak is you've got more hours to spread that cost across. So it's about the winter is about 80% of the summer because you have more hours in that window. With the 3-part rate, we increased the summer on-peak to a summer off-peak ratio to 2. So it's 2x ratio. So you're up to 17 cents versus 8.6 cents off-peak. And that super off-peak rate is 4.5 cents. So basically you're covering your power supply energy cost of 3.75 cents plus a little bit. Now, and each of these rates, like you said, when we designed this, we had the exact same billing determinants times your customer charge and your energy charge now, and they produce the same revenue, but with the standard rates in both cases. Any questions on the process to get there?
I mean, to me, it seems the 3-part is a no-brainer. It really gets us down the road fast, and it really does incentivize the EV charging.
Yeah. Our recommendation at the end is basically, you could do both, but if you're only going to do one, do the 3.
Yeah.
Just some additional things to consider, and you've actually already talked about some of this. Can your current meters record usage by time of use period? Now, time of use rates existed before, AMI. So some meters have this capability already, but I'm guessing you need to have that AMI meter probably with your new system to be on this, but you're well along your way to getting there. Is your existing billing system set up for this? So there's, is your CIS, is your billing system, can you make invoices to your customers? There's always that's part of the thought process as well. Can your customer service staff be trained to communicate this new rate option? So it's more than just throwing it on the tariff and seeing what happens. And then will you have a dedicated marketing campaign to promote the rate, or just kind of let customers grow organically out of the rate? So again, this isn't anything necessarily to keep you from doing this, but all things that should be part of your process as you roll this out.
Is Hans or Gary, is Kathy Lindsay back there, or is she behind me?
She's back there.
Yeah, I'm here.
And she has nothing else to do.
She is.
Well, and as she comes up, Travis, could you remind me when full AMI for residential customers is supposed to be rolled out by?
Yeah, we're probably another 12 months-ish out, but
Okay.
we do have enough in inventory. If someone was just banging down the door and we didn't have changed them yet, we could get it.
Okay, that's my question. I just don't want someone who gets excited about this rate and then we're like, oh, sorry, talk to us in 12 months. So I want to make sure. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Miss Lindsay, with your fingertips on the pulse of the community.
Yeah.
Going through all this in terms of a public hearing and customers understanding what this is all about, even to be able to comment.
Yeah.
and do some initial work to explain what's going on, what would you envision? What do you think it would take?
Yeah, this is a lot for just our regular customer.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a lot for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, there would have to be, obviously some help from Travis and you guys. I don't know if it's something you've done with other groups, to have kind of a template of what people have done. We can reach out to,
Y'all got cable 10. I mean, you got different areas to talk to customers,
Yeah,
but
I
this is a
mean-
lot. I mean, for people to
No,
comment.
I think we have lots of avenues to get
Yeah.
information out. I think the what's going to be the thing is putting it in a way that people grasp it and understand what we're talking about, and then not only that, but then how it will affect them.
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing.
And step one of that communication every
Yeah.
time is, this is optional.
Yeah.
This is a new
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
you can
But-
have. We're not forcing this on anyone.
But like take for the 37 customers you looked at.
Yeah.
Just pick them as the first group.
Uh-huh.
And April Rhodes might, she might have a good feel from the CSI people, but if you were going to communicate to those 37 that you looked at,
Mhm.
my first question would be why? Why do I want to do this?
Yeah. I think there's a multi-factored thing. I think for the initial one is, like I said, I think the people that want to be active in their energy management, they know that it costs more in certain types of day, and they want to be a participant in that. I think part of your communication as a utility is that by shifting hours off peak, it benefits everyone, and it lowers the cost of that demand. You don't need to get into demand charges. It lowers the cost for everyone by people participating in this. And then there's the third piece of that is bill savings. If you do shift, you will likely see bill savings on your bill and pay less for electricity.
Well, and to me, the important selling point is we have so many people in our community on a fixed income that who may be retired, so they have a little bit more time. I mean, I just keep sitting here thinking through my head, wouldn't it be nice if there was a light system where you can see red, green, yellow, and it's somewhere prominent in the house, so people aren't like, oh my God, what time is it? Oh, I'm 3 minutes over, Or even if we had on our TV, our streaming system, some system that they could see very quickly, like by the clock.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
it's
I'm pretty sure Nest thermostats you can link up with your electric rates.
or on your
It'll show you
thermostats,
what
exactly.
it is, yeah.
Or something that pings on your phone, hey, in 15
there's
minutes.
those too, yeah.
Well, and I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just saying, the more I think about this, the more I think that we have to have that infrastructure. We have to be ready to assist people, because human nature is you try something, you're excited about it, it doesn't work, your bill doesn't go down, you're like, wow, this is all a crock. And then you tell everyone it's a crock. And,
I've seen utilities also when this is more, well, I've seen it with both optional and mandatory. If you don't see bill savings in your first year, you can have the lesser of the two after 12 months. So.
And how do people that normally, if they implement this and they go with it, how long are you obligated for?
It's usually 12-month blocks. If you decide to come off, you're off for 12 months before you get opt back in. And if you're going to be on
But
it,
if you opt in, you're in
probably
for
on
12.
for 12 months. Yeah.
Well, and in the worst
But
case,
that's why you pair it with if your bill goes up, we'll match it the first year. Or, that's a policy decision.
yeah. As I'd say, that's the worst case scenario. Your bill actually goes up.
Yeah.
And then you're in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is very interesting. I think this would be a great thing for a lot of customers, and I think Jason's kind of hit this nail on the head of. A lot of times you don't think about how much you're spending on electricity, how much you're using it, when you're using it, that kind of stuff. You just use it when you use it. Now, I generally don't run your dishwasher later at night, that kind of stuff, but that's more convenience than anything else. But I think it gets people in a mindset of thinking about this thing. I think that makes it important. The only concern I have right now is I think there's a lot of moving parts to getting this together. And I would love to go ahead and do some sort of a public hearing on it next month, or but I think we need to be very, very careful about having our ducks in a row about rolling this out in the right way. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, and that's the only word of caution I would give, because I think we've got one shot at rolling this out and having it be a success. That's the only concern I have.
Steve?
Actually, I think we should roll it out regardless of what we think of it now. Gary said this is probably going to help us as we go forward. We're going to do this. We're going to have to do this one way or the other. So we might as well start out slow. But as far as the message goes, I think you reimagine this concept around something that people do think about, particularly in the summer, maybe not in Kentucky, is when it's 90 degrees, 100 degrees, and everyone turns their air conditioning. The first thing everyone says, Lord, I hope the power doesn't go down now. And that concept really is what we're talking about here. The penalty is money versus the system going down.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just, I don't think you put it in the terms of what this presentation is, these numbers. The top message is you may save some money with this.
Yeah.
And then the
The
other
marketing campaign is way different than what's in this.
yeah. And the other things are, and you may save the planet, you may save, those are secondary to money when it comes to putting this out.
I just, since you've been talking about this anecdotal story that kept coming to mind, about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I was talking to LG&E KU, sorry, executive, who demand side management executive. And he said in Eastern Kentucky, they actually had a handful of customers, maybe 100 or 200, that were on a time meter that they basically was like a cell phone minutes charge. They did not have a regular bill. They literally would put $200 on that meter, and they would literally watch the meter tick down through the month. And the PSC, I think the long story was to decide that was illegal. And they basically took those away from those customers, and they were like begging them, please don't take away, because I have so much control of this. I know I only have $200 for my electric bill, and I can truly turn off the power and be in the dark if I feel like it, but I have control. So in a way, this is a reimagining of that situation.
That's kind of someone who's having a prepaid system.
Yeah, you could pay as you go, pay more and you have more,
Yeah. But it just keeps, and then like the customers were they loved their meters so much because they just had so much control over how they use their power. Where we all know, you get your bill at the end of the month and you're like, oh, okay, that's what I spent. Okay, and you feel very little control. So
what I can say is some of the customer can instantly see a saving is the EV adoption.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because they can, when they one time charge 70 kilowatt hour in 8 hours, if they can use that 4 cents an hour instead of 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could do that.
As long as they can manage that 17 cents very carefully, but the volume is there.
Right.
If they charge 2 times, 3 times a week, they can adopt that 4 cents. They can really save savings.
And you're trying to get people from coming in and just plugging home when they get home from work. That's the worst case scenario for the utility.
Yeah.
So what's the board's preference? Do you all want to schedule a public hearing? Do you want to give Kathy a little? Do you want to give Kathy a little time to put together maybe an education information and then for 30 days then do it? Or
they're gonna have to get their tariff language and all that stuff too. So would we maybe want to do would it be too much to ask to do the public hearing maybe in June? And then move on from there. I mean, that gives them a chance to get the tariff language together and all that.
And you think about how to communicate this through your various mechanisms?
Yeah, simplicity is going to be my goal.
Can I ask 2 more questions? I know I've been asking a lot of them.
You're educating me as you ask them.
You've asked every question you've asked, been a good one.
I can make up by asking them. But
not too long.
I guess I was going to ask if we pass, I like Steve's opinion, let's just go ahead and kind of get ahead of this and get this out there. Do we have the ability, once we pass a rate, this is a Hans question, do we have the ability to maybe delay when people can sign up for a new rate, or as soon as it's on the books? Or, well, this is maybe new. And then 2, can you offer it to a subset of customers who could pilot it before you roll it out to, or is it just, it's on the books?
A lot of places put roll to do a pilot first because there's less requirements around it.
Okay, so we could, even if we passed all this and got it all set up, we could do it slowly in how we sort of introduce customers to it. This is me being new.
The only requirement I know of is the rate's got to be prospective.
Yes.
But it has to operate. You can't make a retroactive rate. But I think you could put whatever, if you wanted to put, this is how we're gonna, in part of enacting it, in your public hearing, you could say this is how we're gonna. You could put whatever parameters around that you like.
Whatever effective dates you might have.
Yes.
Whether we want to limit it to, 250 customers the first time around or something like,
I like
that.
that.
We can, to get that experience, we can put anything we want to in that, that all be in tariff language.
David, is April still here? How would your people be able to handle a pilot or a?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got all the infrastructure with AMI to take down this road. So.
And I think if I think it's a good idea, because I think if we do a pilot, if you get those early adopters, if you get those folks that can become your best advertisements for it, because once we roll this out to everybody, if we have some of those 250 people wanting to give their testimonials on around 10 or something like that, that can let people know kind of where they're coming from.
I almost think it should be smaller than 250.
Well,
I think it should be enough,
I threw that
small
number out.
enough that they can really get some individual attention if necessary.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that was just a number I just threw out. I had no idea what the proper number is and what percentage of our customer base we should
Yeah, I agree with Catherine, like 20 people maybe. And to me, I mean, if who is our super customer with this? And that is someone who owns an EV, has solar panels and storage. And oh my God, they just sit here all day. My batteries run at the 15 cents. I still have all my power. I charge my EV at night. I mean, they're just laughing their way to the bank with this.
But they're not using the system on your CP hours, and they're saving money.
Right, but yeah, let me make a point. We're also very happy about how they're doing it. But more importantly, they're making these costly investments everything I just laid out is costly. That's probably as much as their house or more. And they're helping drive that investment faster, and that's part of the whole story. It's not just saving your cost per kilowatt hour. It's, hey, I paid off my solar panels in half the time because I could do this trick. So anyhow, thank you. I'm obviously very excited. It's very cool. But I agree with everything you guys have said. 20 people, roll it out, but let's keep this thing under wraps to some degree.
So how do y'all want to proceed? Jason, John, do y'all have a motion for the hearing and for the process?
Well, I do want to I don't know if there's a reason to brandy around with the 2-tier. Do you guys the 3? Just
no,
seems
I think we'd suggest. I'd say we direct the staff to come up with a tariff for a pilot project with a 3-tier system, and we'll schedule a public hearing for the June meeting right now. And if we need to push that back, if you guys run into trouble getting it together, I mean, as long as we can get something started up by sometime this year, I mean, I'd feel good about getting it out there, getting it going. Start with the pilot project, and then we can move on from there. However, we would need to craft that language. Hans, you'll certainly help them with that. That would be my suggestion, that we have the public hearing in June to review that, and at the same time, we'll hear from staff about how we're going to roll it out and communicate to customers.
You got all that, Ms. Poe? Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the plan? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Great.
Thank you. Ms. Lindsay? Great plan.
Knocked it out of the park. Cool. Guys, thanks for letting me talk through that so much.
Hey,
It's a great opportunity.
It was very helpful.
Yeah. 6.3, consider approving AXS TV and HDNet movies renewal. Harvey, you're back.
Yes, sir. I even left my book up here from earlier. All right, it is staff recommending the approval of Access TV and HDNet movies as a renewal through the NCTC with the term through March 31st of 2027. The agreement is keeps our rates flat through the term of the agreement, so we like it when that happens. There are no additional carriage requirements or obligations, and ask for the approval. Happy to answer any questions on this item.
Any questions for Harvey? All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's approved. Harvey, item 6.4, consider approving video transport services agreement with Highland Telephone Cooperative.
Staff recommends approval of this video transport service agreement with Highland Cooperative. The agreement has a term through December 31st of 2026. Highland reached out to us. They carry WKYT. They have the rights to carry WKYT. They had previously received the feed from Duo Broadband, who I think is getting out of the cable TV business, and so they were looking for a new source because they can't, I guess, receive it over the air. So we checked with WKOIT, they were fine with this. We're already sending a feed up to ComNet for our streaming service, and Highland uses that same service, and so basically they're just
Pull
gonna
it down.
take a copy of it and push it to Highland. And so we just wanted to have an agreement in place that sort of defines our responsibilities, and really the agreement's very much in our favor, and they were in agreement with that, and so they've already executed, and we're just asking you guys to execute it as well.
And I looked it up. We talked about this at our agenda meeting. I looked it up. Highland actually covers McCreary County down on the southern border, and they cover some places in Tennessee as well. So that they're pretty remote and pretty mountain locked. So, yeah.
And this is the basic bottom line here. We're helping out a community that.
Yep, exactly. There's no cost to the plant board. In fact, and they're going to pay us a little bit every month for doing it. So,
excellent.
Oh, any questions for Harvey? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
okay.
Harvey, thank you. Number 7, Gary, you have any comments?
No.
Okay, under old and new business.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point I want to bring up. And this was discussed when David, it hit in my mind when David talked about the budget being presented to us at the next meeting, or at the May meeting. The 21st, again, is primary election day. They have moved that now to whether it's no longer the 4th Tuesday, it's the 3rd Tuesday, and it's going to conflict, and I'm sure we're probably going to do some Cable 10 stuff there and be otherwise occupied. We generally have had that meeting, done a special meeting the day before on Monday. I don't know if that date works for everyone or not, but
we could do the Monday or the Wednesday.
We could do the
if we want to
Monday,
stay
or
in that
we
week.
could do the day after if we want to stay in that week. So I don't know if everybody want to check, and so I mean, we don't have to make that decision now, but I just want to give people who might be watching warning that we might not meet at a regular.
And it will
probably won't meet at our meeting.
And it will be a special meeting, so
It
from
will
an
be.
agenda standpoint, we can only deal with exactly what's on the agenda.
Yeah.
It won't be a regular. Does everybody want to look or get back with Kathy, or?
I don't know. I would say do it the day before.
Yeah, the day
Monday.
before is fine. That's fine with me. 20th would be fine.
So let's plan on Monday, May 20th. If anybody in the next 48 hours sees that's a big problem, let Kathy know and we can regroup. But if not, we'll go to May 20th.
Good.
For the meeting at 5 o'clock.
And when would we need to get notice done on that, Kathy?
It's just 24 hours.
24 hours. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to get it into the State Journal.
It's just
Just a special meeting. We don't for a public hearing. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay.
Okay.
That was
Do
all.
we need to take a vote on that, Hans? Okay.
We'll just notice it.
Okay. The next one before Sharmista comes up, Travis, you want to talk about the EV issue?
Okay.
Yeah. We got an issue that Hans identified and Travis has looked at is, as you know, we approved in the budget an additional charging station to install. The city picked out the location. It is not going well. Hans sent a letter this in the last couple hours, in the last couple days, and advised the city attorney and the mayor that we were having problems with that location, and asked them either we're having trouble getting an easement that we need to cross. So they can either help us with that, or do they want to pick an alternate site? Ironically, we just had the discussion with the people from the farmers market also, but we have the charging station. It's sitting there. Travis, you want to?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. It's of the more expensive variety, so
It's a level 3, right?
Yeah, it's a $50,000 piece of equipment that's kind of collecting dust while we're trying to work on an easement issue. The current location has several property owners kind of right all in one area, and it kind of takes one to gum up the works, if you will. So yeah, we kind of feel like we're at or up against a dead end at the city's original requested location. So I think, yeah, exactly to your point, either we recruit them to help and either tell us to move it, or start looking at another locations. But yeah, I think it would be good to consider alternates. That would be my personal
I just
opinion.
want the board to be aware of it, and, you know, like I said, the city picked this location, and basically saying to them, you know, and they'll be paying for the power, we're providing the charger, just like we have in the others, and if they wanna move it or whatever, make sure everybody was fine with, if the city says we wanna go somewhere else, then we'll put it there.
Which location was it again?
Yeah, it was by the old rail depot.
Oh, but we have one down there already, like on
We
the
have
street.
one street side, we have a level 2, yeah, and then this one was gonna kind of be around the corner. And so there has been one property owner that told us yes, and basically gave us a lease. They've been great. Want to make sure I put that out there.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many different segments we're trying to get from where we have power to that location. So yeah, it's at the old depot is where we had originally started.
And I assume it has to be a thicker power line or higher.
We have to have 3-phase.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
The power level 3.
I just wanna let everybody know what was going on there, and
Okay. And then Travis, while you're up there, did you get everything you needed done? I know we started talking a lot more, but you had 2 points that you said you wanted us to motion on or help you with.
On when we were doing the rate stuff,
You said there was a change.
we had the
with
$10 and we had the aggregate.
the net metering waived the fee, and then there was a lighting rate
Do you
that
want
we
us
need
to?
to.
Yeah.
Do you want us to vote on that or?
That's
we'll-
all,
we
that's
can
all
do it during the
included in the
public
same
hearing.
public hearing. They're gonna put all those tariff changes
Yeah, I'll have a
together.
red line
Okay,
tariff
cool.
showing.
Just want to make sure you got what
Yeah.
you need.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
we're good. But yeah, I think that's, if we can start approaching the city about that
Yeah.
issue and.
And Hans, you've sent the letter to Laura, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I think it might just be, there's been some personnel kind of movement at some of these places. So I think once we get our, I know Travis is working with a surveyor to get a particular description. So we'll send kind of a more detailed letter, detailed proposal, and I think things will probably fall in place.
Yeah, but this is an
My
opportunity for
hope.
the city, if they've rethought it and want to do
Sure,
something
yes,
different,
sir.
this is their call to.
Got some options to pursue.
Okay.
Great.
Travis? Hey, Sharmista?
Okay, thank you.
You all probably seen the mayor was kind enough maybe a week ago. He got information that EPA was doing a public hearing, and then Sharmista and them set in on it about the EPA on the water rules. You all may have seen it on TV about some new standards they're going to adopt. So, and Sharmista has a 45, 60-minute presentation on PFAS that she wants to talk about. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brandon's been on I've been on a subcommittee about this exact issue, so I'm gonna kind of let him take the
Okay.
lead, and if you have any additional questions, I'm here to assist.
Okay.
On April 10th, 24, the Environmental Protection Agency recently released the final drinking water regulation to limit PFAS in drinking water. The rule establishes legally enforceable levels in public water systems for several versions of the PFAS chemicals that are known to occur individually or as a mixture in drinking water. The rule applies to all public water systems. As you're aware, PFAS are widely used, long-lasting chemicals that break down slowly over time. They're primarily found in consumer products such as food packaging to create a non-stick surface, as well as some manufacturing industries. The maximum contaminant level goal is 0. The maximum contaminant level for PFOA and PFOS are 4 parts per trillion, and for Gen X chemicals, it is 10 parts per trillion. And what 10 parts per trillion, what a part per trillion is equivalent to was 1 drop of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools, which is 13.2 million gallons. So, just to put that in perspective, we're below all the MCLs on this so far, so this really we won't have any treatment issues. We shouldn't have to do anything. The first step is initial monitoring within 3 years of the rules release. FPB will perform quarterly tests starting for UCMR 5 in August of this current year. We did perform testing in September of last year, and none of the results exceeded the MCL for either substances. However, we will we will perform the initial monitoring as outlined in the rule. If no exceedances are found, monitoring will be performed once a year for 3 years. If after 3 years the levels are still below the MCL, the state may allow for reduced monitoring, testing once every 3 years. For systems that do not have exceedances, they will have 5 years to make improvements to their treatment process. The federal government has included $9 billion under the bipartisan infrastructure law to go towards emerging contaminants. In addition, we will be required to report PFAS in the Consumer Confidence Report. Once we complete the initial round of testing, we'll start that, and that'll be on our CCR. That's all.
So the money that the federal government has allocated in the legislation, is any of that available to utilities for their testing cost, or will we absorb all the testing cost?
We'll absorb that. This coming year for budget, I added $5,000 in our laboratory budget. Is really all that'll. 5,000 will cover it.
Okay.
It's four. It's one round with every 3 months, so it's quarterly.
Okay. Will we do that work ourselves, or we have to send that out?
No, look, it's Pace Analytical is who we use, and they will come and they'll do all that and send it and give us the results.
Any question?
I guess the thing is it still now just reverse osmosis if you exceed the levels, which we don't, if you do exceed the treatment procedures to take care of this are pretty limited, aren't they?
There's only three preferred methods.
Right.
It's GAC, which is granular activated carbon, reverse osmosis, and nanofiltration, and ion exchange. Yeah, I know. I couldn't think of the other one. But if we had to do something, then GAC would be our
probably
best
the preferred.
option. Yeah.
That's just a chemical treatment process similar to what we've got now.
It's different. You have it's a huge filter bed. Their feet, they're real deep, and it just depends on your capacity and several other things, how much removal that you need.
Right.
And the material is different too. And you have to have that fired. It has to go, they take it out, fire it, bring it back, and sometimes you have to buy carbon. It's about twice as expensive as the carbon that we use now. So it's very, very expensive to put in and maintain, but it's probably the best route.
Would it get us other benefits to our water system, or allow us not to use other systems that we use by doing something intensive like that?
GAC could help in some ways. You'd see some taste and odor, some HAA and THM removal would help. Those would be two benefits to doing something that way.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions for? Sure, Mr. You and Brandon, thank you all for getting on this and on short notice giving a presentation. Appreciate it.
Before you all go, I just wanted to mention I had the opportunity last month to go to the annual Kentucky Environmental Conference, and during a session with everyone, the new director of the Division of Water with the Kentucky Department of Environmental Protection, Sarah Gaddis, asked everybody at the conference if they had seen any service line inventory information from their utilities, and no one said anything. And she gave a big shout out to Frankfurt Plant Board, and she said she'd already done hers, and we'd had a great portal and survey and app, and she thought it was so cool. And so I appreciate everybody's work on that.
Yeah. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, before we're on to the next course of business, I would make a motion to request permission to call a closed session.
Mr. Snyder, all we need is all we need is pending or proposed tonight.
What's that now?
All we need is just 61.810.1C to discuss pending or proposed about contract matter.
61.810.1C to discuss pending or proposed litigation regarding collection matter, advertising matter, breach of contract matter, employment matter, cost recovery, or regulatory matter.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're going into closed. Get back in 5 minutes. we're coming out of closed session. Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to come out of closed session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman, there was no action taken by the board during the closed session.
With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of going home?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed want to stay? We're going home. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, everybody.